What's up, my neighbors or soon to be? If you are watching this, I probably sent you this video because we are about to embark on viewing property together, touring property together, hopefully with the purpose of purchasing property together. And the laws have changed. Why did I say that in a Southern accent? I don't know. Um, I might get a little bit verbose about this and just I want to try to make it concise and easy to understand, but at the same time, people are like, why? And then so you need to know the history kind of and the ins and outs. And so I can't make any promises, but if you need to watch this on, 1.5 speed or whatever, you do what you got to do. But please watch this. And yeah, so anyway, this is about the new form this is the law that I need to provide you with this form, and you need to sign that you've read and acknowledged it um, before we go out and view any property from here on out. This is as of August of this last summer. So we're in the year 2024, almost over already. And I almost did one of my pet peeves. I've been in this business for more than 20 years. When you hear people say that, just roll your eyes, okay? Because nobody cares. But anyway, I've been at this a long time, and it's not habit, it's not muscle memory yet because it's brand new. And so I've had a number of showings, and like last minute, I forget. So it's the buyer's representation and compensation agreement. And it's a lot of you might be familiar with the agency agreement. That's a thing. And that just kind of breaks down, how these things go. Typically in the world of real estate, you've got a seller, they want to sell something, land or a home, and they contract with a real estate agent or broker, and they make an agreement. I want this much money, and of that much money, I'm willing to give you this certain percentage. Let's just call it 6, but it's not the law that it's 6, okay? Commissions are not set and they are negotiable. But for the sake of this video, let's just call it 6, okay? And so the seller is agreeing that if they get the purchase price that they want or the terms that are agreeable to them, they agree to pay the real estate agent 6% total commission of whatever that sales price is. Typically 50% of that, half of that commission, so 3%, is being offered on the open market to entice and bribe, however you want to say it. Entice, let's say that's a nicer word, all the other agents out there that have clients in the market for property to participate in your sale, and it encourages them to bring their buyers and view your property if you're the seller, and that there's a promise that they are going to be compensated. I could go on a whole totally different rant about how a lot of agents over the years don't split that number in half at all. And they'll even discount their commission, kind of conning their sellers into thinking that they're going to be saving so much money, but they're keeping 3% for themselves, and they're only offering 1% to that other agent out there to bring their buyers, which the seller will not necessarily be aware of that fact because it was under disclosed, or there wasn't this forced disclosure about that until kind of recently. And so the seller would be laying awake at night like, gosh, I wonder why my property is not selling. And it's because you're not making it worth the other agent's while, the buyer's agents, not worth their time to participate in your property. If there's 2 houses side by side and one seller is saying, I'm going to give you 3% to bring your buyer here, and this house is saying, I'm only going to give you 1% to bring your buyer here, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? So, again, this is a little bit of a rant, but over the years, what I've preferred to do if there is a situation or a call to discount the commission greatly, I try to take the hit on the listing agent side so that I can still be offering a beefy amount to encourage as many other agents in the world to come and participate, bring their buyers to my seller's property, so that we're not doing that laying awake at night thing. Tyler and I are awesome at our jobs. We're really good at our jobs, but we're not as good as all the real estate agents in all of Southern California. And when you offer a nice, healthy commission to all those other agents, the chances of you getting your highest and best amount for your sales price obviously is the best that it can be. So anyway, I need some chapstick. Um, Chapstick, where are you? Hey. So, uh, oh, it's so good. It's November, but it's very hot and dry outside still. Mwah. That's way better. Thank you. So, the new thing that has happened is that um somewhere we're just going to call them lawyers uh there's a lot of them out there, and speaking of compensation, they need to work and make money also. And so somebody out there has concocted this conspiracy that exactly what I just broke down to you um was somehow duping the buyer. And so this whole new disclosure came about in an effort to protect and uh, run to the rescue of the buyer, um, which is bullshit. Because the actual result of this entire lawsuit and settlement and all this stuff that we're talking about right now, has actually been a humongous disservice to the buyers, because now you poor folks have to watch videos like this that go on and on forever. And at the end of it, it's still clear as mud. So again, just try to stick with me. I'm going to try to hit everything. So the compensation and representation agreement, it outlines clearly and clearly discloses a couple of facts. The facts are that the agent who's taking you out to see property, and hopefully it's us, but if it's not, if a real estate agent, and this is not just California, this is everywhere in the entire country, this is nationwide, if they take you out to view property, you need to be educated and aware in writing, and basically give your permission to this agent in writing that you agree that they are, by showing you property, they are representing you, and they have, I guess you could call it the right to compensation, or they work for a living. And so, whereas before, a buyer, and I've had these conversations where the buyer goes, "Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait, to buy my first house or scout out this piece of land, but how much is this going to cost me? What do I have to pay you, my agent, for showing me all these properties?" And we would say, the buyer does not have to worry about that. The buyer is not responsible for paying our commissions. Our commission is paid to us by the seller of the property. And what the attorneys determined, and actually the people behind them, you could say it's Zillow, Redfin, BlackRock, in order of like evilness or something, and whoever's behind that, oh, Satan, I don't know, right? But they by the way, this is not altruistic on their part. A lot of the theys that I'm talking about in this video um have apps, and like Zillow, for example, and Redfin. They firmly believe that the human real estate agent is obsolete, it's not a necessary thing, and that people can do these very complicated, very emotionally wrought, very psychological transactions with a little app on their phones, and that us humans are not needed. And so again, this lawsuit was brought about in an effort, they're saying we're trying to protect the buyer, but they're trying to protect their Lamborghinis and stuff like that. So just to be clear about that. So, um, yeah, we would say, don't worry, Mr. Buyer, you don't have to worry about paying our commission, because remember, going back to how the traditional listing agreement was set up, the listing agent representing the seller, they had an agreement together for what kind of commission was going to be set aside from the sales price to pay all the agents involved. And like typically I said, it would be 50-50. So in the instance of a 6% total commission, 3% would be reserved for that listing agent, for their marketing and for their negotiating skills representing that seller. And the other 3% would be blasted out there into the world like, we will pay you 3% if you bring your buyers. And so that's how it was shared. Well, it sounds like semantics to me, but these attorneys deemed that that was misleading and trickery and deceptive to the buyers, because if the buyers didn't give the money to the sellers for that property, the sellers wouldn't have the money to pay the commissions. Do you hear how dumb that is? How semantics that is? But they won. Yeah. So they were like, you real estate agents are a bunch of crooks. You're telling the buyer that they're not paying for your services, but they are, because you're using the money that they put up to buy the property to pay the commissions. The seller didn't have that money set aside and pull it out of their pockets and go, bup, bup, bup. It's fucking dumb, right? You felt, anyway. So yeah. So now, as of August, I don't remember, 15th, 17th, something like that, this summer, we are no longer permitted to advertise commissions being offered to the buyer's agent. Absolutely not allowed to advertise that at all. And it's so funny because people were like, that's fine. We workarounds, right? So they were like mowing the words 3% in their lawns and then taking aerial photos of their house and putting it in the MLS. They were getting fined. Or putting little notes here and there for, people when they'd come see their house, like, it's no longer allowed. And so it's just so dumb when a law like this is passed. It almost causes or inspires people to be even sneakier and more deceptive as the workaround, because the bottom line is that as long as, whether it's this law or anything else, as long as a seller is truly motivated and truly wants to sell their property, they're always going to figure out a way to communicate to you, the buyer, or the buyer's agent, or anyone working for them, that they will be rewarded for their efforts. A lot of people went totally the other direction, like, oh, that means that, sucks for you, real estate agents, you're not going to get paid anymore. That's not the case. Sellers want to sell, they're going to pay the people that work for them to help them sell. So good job, BlackRock, or whoever you are. As if they don't have enough money. We're the ones in the trenches actually doing all the work. Anyway, I'm trying not to digress too much. Go back to the buyer's representation agreement. So this form that you will be asked to sign, you're required to sign before you go out with any real estate agent. If this form is not signed and it's not in writing that you agreed to this agency relationship that's being formed by somebody taking you out and touring you around the property, the agent can be fined and or lose their licenses immediately. So I'm not gonna, be showing anybody
Not got that.
any property without this thing. I'm just not going to risk it. And if you are working with somebody who is not asking you to fill out this form and sign it, I'm not calling them any names. They might just not know about it. Like I said, I've been in this industry for over 2 decades and it's brand new. So we're kind of like clunking along through it ourselves. So the agreement says here's all the different kinds of agency. You might have an agent who's only working for the seller, you might have an agent who's only working for the buyer. It does happen, and it's kind of an old wives' tale by now, Clark, that like dual agency is bad. And yes, it can be bad, but so can single agency. Um, in my situation, and if you know me and you're watching this video because I sent it to you, especially in the backcountry as a listing agent, I represent a lot of sellers in the backcountry. The backcountry is a humongous area. And it goes back to that compensation thing. Like a buyer's agent, this is their living. This is what they do for their livelihood. And so it has been very, very difficult over the years, and I don't see it changing anytime soon to entice, even when you're offering a full 3% commission or whatever the case may be, to entice an agent from down the hill from town um, to come and spend their entire day probably showing one property where if they stay in Temecula or wherever they are, they can show 10 properties and still be home in time for lunch, that kind of a thing. So just by that nature, and because the country isn't for everyone, we see it all the time. Mr. loves it, Mrs. hates it, or vice versa. It's not often that way, but sometimes it's usually Mrs. hates it. Because she's not rough and tumble or whatever. No judgment. We're all different. But anyway, I've seen it before where the buyer does convince their agent, like, please come show me this property. I'm interested. You're my agent. Please come show me this property in the country. And the agent's attitude is so like, it's dirty here, that it taints the buyer's experience, and it might even change their mind about shopping in the country. So, because of all these kinds of factors over the years, it has become I've become very practiced and very, yeah, very practiced at the art of balancing dual agency, not leaning on one side or the other, knowing when to kind of step back and, here's the message, here's the information. What do you want to do with it? Okay, message taken, give it to this guy. Here's the message, here's the counteroffer. What do you want to do with it? And not being an influence, but being a mediator and making the deal happen, because you obviously have a buyer and a seller and they both want this thing. And so it's the agent's job in that situation to not get in the way, which is very hard for some people. I've been there for whatever reason, personalities, when you're like, this isn't fair, this isn't right, whatever. But the art is knowing how to not get in the way and to safely and safely practice dual agency with happy results, right? So that's a big part of the BRBC or whatever the abbreviation is for this form that you're about to sign, is just explaining to you all the different kinds of agency. And then baked into it is all the same other stupid stuff like buyers, you should be doing investigations. Yeah, no duh. Like California, we have to write every single thing down. Like buyers, make sure that you put your clothes on before you go shopping today or whatever dumb thing. Anyway, but the meat of it is buyers. This is telling you in writing that the agent that is taking you out is expecting compensation. And not only a compensation, but specifically, you have to write in what the compensation is. And on raw land, that could be 5%, could be 10%, it could be 3%. On a house, it could be 3%, it could be 2%, it could be a lot of different things. But the fact is you have to mark down something. So we're going to be writing down a percentage that we, as the agent representing you, expect to be compensated for our services. And then typically right now we're going to go hold on one second. Okay.
And then we're at this intersection where you can go left or right and we don't know which way to go.
Okay, bye. Okay. So, not to worry because you're going to panic and go, that's great. Happy for you. You make 5% commission or whatever the number is that we're going to write down. Depends on what we're looking at, stuff like that, other circumstances. But now it looks like you, the buyer, are going to have to reach in your pocket, get your checkbook, and write me a check for that amount. But don't panic. We're going to go further down the form, and there's a little box that we're going to check. And the box says that the buyer does not have the funds to pay this said commission. And by executing this form correctly, I'm going to be able to take this form to a seller and use it to negotiate my commission so that it's not your burden. So again, it's like this overabundance, if that's not the most redundant thing I've ever said, overabundance of caution and disclosure to you as the buyer that I'm a lady who lives out here in the country and this is my full-time job and that I do get paid for what I do. And this is how much I'm going to be asking a seller to pay on your behalf or in exchange for bringing you to their property in an effort to see. So again, this form is not, it's not a purchase agreement. It's not obligating you to cut me a check if it doesn't work out, or if we have a disagreement, or we just don't like the way each other smells, or whatever the case may be. It's simply supposed to overly clearly, clear as mud, disclose to you that I expect payment for my services. But it also lines out who is the person that is supposed to pay for these services. And at first it looks like it's you, but my job is to get that seller who's very motivated and who's happy to pay my commission in exchange for me bringing, I just spit, in exchange for me bringing them a good buyer. So it works out really well. I know it's really confusing. I know it's a pain in the ass. I've been explaining this on the side of the road, dirt clouds going over us, and people are going, "What are you talking about?" And like, "What am I buying?" And it just seems, like I said, it's supposed to be a service to the buyer, and it winds up just kind of confusing them. But it's we're learning. It's a learning curve. We're going to get there together. It's going to be fine. I'm sure there will be more questions than this, and we can go line by line through this form. But I wanted you to watch this video before we meet and before we obviously go shopping. Otherwise, I would get in big time trouble. And hopefully just like just shed a little bit of light on this whole shit show that is the BRBC. I think that's what the abbreviation is for. Anyway, it's going to be great. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.